Xero is accounting software that has all the features small business owners need to run a business successfully. To help ensure business success, Xero also partners directly with accounting and bookkeeping firms, giving them a suite of tools and training to become Xero experts to help them and to confidently advise businesses. Stay tuned to hear more from our sponsor Xero later in the episode.
If you'd like to earn CPE credit for listening to this episode, visit earmarkcpe.com. Download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. Continuing education has never been so easy. And now, on to the episode.
This is Oh My Fraud, a true crime podcast where our criminals cut checks instead of cutting you. I'm Greg Kite.
And I'm Caleb Newquist.
Caleb, we're just going to jump right into it. Does your family celebrate Christmas?
Yeah, I grew up celebrating Christmas, and I celebrate Christmas now with my family. And I think I started complaining about the commercialization of Christmas immediately after watching A Charlie Brown Christmas for the first time. This is like circa 1985 or so.
What was it that got under your skin about Charlie Brown? I mean, yeah, it's because I think one of the themes is that Christmas is too commercialized. And
yes, no, I mean I took the message to heart, Greg. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I get it. Okay, I thought.
Do we need to start the podcast over? What just happened?
No. Now I understand. I thought you're like I bought this VHS tape of Charlie Brown
come on,
Christmas,
Greg.
and this is bullshit. Okay.
In those days, it was on every year. It was on network TV, and so I love it. But I mean, I'm mostly kidding-ish, but no, I picked up on the commercialization of Christmas bit pretty early on, and so I kind of, I've been grumbling for decades ever since. But yes, I celebrate Christmas.
Okay, so with those grumblies, does that extend to, because a lot of people have strong opinions about Christmas decorations and Christmas music. Do you have any strong opinions about when it's like too early to start doing Christmas decorations, or too early to start listening to Christmas music, or even like when is it too early to start seeing Christmas shit in stores?
Yeah, I do have strong feelings about this. It's always too early to decorate for Christmas. It's always too early to see things in stores, but it's never too early for Christmas music.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so okay. So wait, so always too early to decorate. So that's like if it's Christmas Eve and you have stockings up, it's like, no.
I mean,
nope.
It's fine. It's fine.
Nice. But you love Christmas music.
I do like Christmas music.
Nice.
Yeah, and not this may surprise folks, but not just the secular stuff. Like I love Frank Sinatra singing Christmas music is fucking amazing to me.
Yeah.
Or Dean Martin, or Darlene Love. Like there's something about Christmas music that I thoroughly enjoy, but the rest of it can go to hell.
Really? That's interesting. I'm definitely I like the old school Christmas music. I'm a Bing Crosby guy.
Yeah.
For Christmas.
Notorious jerk, from what I understand. But
really?
But a crooner.
Don't ruin him for me, you son of a bitch. Okay, so Caleb just fucking ruined Christmas. Welcome to the podcast. Okay, so another thing that that everyone has opinions about, I believe, is fruitcake. So fruitcake, have you eaten it? Does your family incorporate fruitcake into their Christmas to the Christmas celebrations? Is it a tradition? Is it a joke? Tell me how fruitcake is intersected with your life.
Okay, lots of questions there, but I will answer all of them. What about fruitcake? I don't know. Have you ever eaten it? I'm not sure. Does your family incorporate fruitcake into their Christmas celebration? No. Is it a tradition? No. Is it a joke? Yes. Maybe. Here's the deal. My fruitcake experience is virtually non-existent. I don't have any memories really of eating it. Growing up, it's not a staple in our celebrations now. I just mostly know it as the butt of jokes, they're hockey pucks or whatever. And of course, the nutty is a fruitcake expression, that always struck me as weird though, because I'm like, wait, a fruitcake has nuts in it? Like, what is there? What am I missing? And the thing I was missing was fruitcake because I had never eaten it, so I didn't know there were fucking nuts in it.
Yeah. It's not called a nut cake. Why is
it's not a nut cake.
It should be fruity as a fruit cake, not nutty as a fruit cake.
You basically get to the same place. Fruity, nutty, the same.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. Anyway.
Okay, so here's the next question. How big, just take a guess, how big do you think the fruitcake industry is?
Oh, wow. I have no earthly idea, but I am willing to take a wild ass guess. And since, so the fruitcake industry is part of the American junk food industry. So I'd put it around like $1 trillion.
Yeah. Not even, maybe the junk food industry is probably a couple, but this is not even close.
Oh,
I did some
too low, huh?
No. You way overshot it.
Oh, okay.
Doing some and this, like, don't even look in the show notes for this because this was so quick and dirty of an internet search that I did. But I found that there are approximately 2 million fruitcakes sold every year.
Okay.
So the fruitcake industry is not even anywhere near $1 billion industry, let alone $1 trillion industry. Doing a back of the envelope calculation, if the average fruitcake costs $35, which by the way that seems kind of high, but let's just use it. If the average fruitcake is $35, then 2 million fruitcakes a year, that's a $70 million with an M, $70 million industry. Not a big industry. But we do need that context because the setting for today's fraud case is deep in the heart of big fruitcake.
Christmas is just around the corner. Coming up.
If someone asked me to guess where the world's premier fruitcake bakery was located, my guess would probably be Minnesota. For some reason, that feels right to me. Fruitcake land.
Yeah, Midwest.
But actually,
it feels kind of Midwesty.
Yeah, comforting.
Yeah, kind of. It feels like
There's something passive aggressive about a fruitcake that I'm not aware.
I don't think fruitcake makes an appearance in the movie A Christmas Story, but it seems like it should.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Right. But actually, the world's premier fruitcake bakery is the Collins Street Bakery in Corsicana, Texas, and that's about 50 miles south of Dallas.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this Collins Street Bakery? I've never heard of it.
I'm unfamiliar with the world's premier fruitcake bakery.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, here's kind of some background on, should we call it CSB?
Yeah.
Collins Street Bakery, aka CSB, was started in 1896 by German immigrants. And the legend is that in 1914, Ringling Brothers Circus, this was before the 1919 merger with Barnum and Bailey.
Okay.
Ringling came through Corsicana and ordered dozens of fruitcakes as Christmas gifts to be mailed to friends and family across the globe, which allegedly is how Collins Street Bakery entered the not so high stakes world of mail order fruitcakes.
Okay. Gotcha. That's kind of cool. I mean, first off,
kind of cool.
My thoughts are
cool.
Leave it to the Germans to introduce something as evil as fruitcake into the world. Yeah. Germans and clowns. For some reason, those aren't the two things that make people really comfortable and feel at ease.
Right. So we're gonna fast forward a long way. We're gonna fast forward a lot.
Okay.
Enter Sandy Jenkins. Sandy is a middle-aged accountant, and he was, he fit the mold. He fit the accountant stereotype. Reserved, even shy, not what you would maybe think of as an attractive man.
Okay.
And not much of a personality. His wife, Kay Jenkins, on the other hand, was very outgoing, great at parties, and they had kind of expensive tastes. Sandy had this fledgling watch collection, and Kay had her gardens had won Corsicana Yard of the Month multiple times. And
Yard of the Month seems something like, if that's coveted, that's only by a very select few who would give a shit about having a Yard of the Month. I'm happy when my yard is mowed and edged and I go nailing it.
But that competition is like, it's like blood sport probably.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, for the people who are, if there's a yard of the month, there's some people who are like quote unquote accidentally mowing the neighbor's rose bush under, just to they're like, what are those aphids? They're like just opening bags of aphids into their neighbor's yard, going, I'll win it this time.
They'll never know it was me. So the Jenkins, they were very active in the First Baptist Church.
Okay.
Sandy was even a deacon. And in 1995, Sandy lost his job. Sandy had a job at a utility company, and they were, the folks at First Baptist, they were praying for him. And Bob McNutt, the president,
the president of the fruitcake factory is named Bob McNutt. Oh,
yes,
I love that so much.
Yes, it's virtually every article in the show notes has this person's name.
Right, I love it.
I mean, maybe not every article, but lots of articles. This man, Bob McNutt.
Bob McNutt. Which is, if it was just Bob Nut, that wouldn't be as funny as Bob McNutt for some reason. Oh, I love it. Okay.
So anyway.
Shelly
Mr.
McNutt?
Mr. McNutt.
Nut. Okay.
I believe went to this very same church.
Wait, were these the Brazil McNuts, or were these...
Are we continuing this?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyway, Sandy needed a job, Greg. Sandy Jenkins.
He did.
Sandy Jenkins.
And they were
needed
praying
a job
for him.
Yeah. Yeah. People were sending him the good vibes. And guess what? Sandy needed a job, and he got a job at CSB, at Collins Street Bakery. And his starting wage,
how much?
$25,000. $25,000.
Rolling in that sweet, sweet fruitcake dough.
Yeah, and this is the mid-90s. I was not a working stiff in the mid-90s, so
yeah,
I don't
in the
know
mid-90s,
if that's a fair salary or not.
I was I was a teacher in the late 90s. I was a teacher, and that was maybe a little paltry even for teachers. 25,000. Yeah, that's not an awesome wage. But I think the cost of living in Texas was less than it was here in the great
low.
state of Utah.
You could probably
stretch that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Sandy started working at Collins Street Bakery. His first position, he was an accounts payable clerk, and he was also the payroll supervisor. So he wore a couple of hats, but he apparently was really good at it, and he was good at accounting. And so, although interesting fact, Sandy Jenkins did not have a degree in accounting. He had a degree in business administration, but he kind of fell into accounting, and he was good at it. After a few years at Collins Street Bakery, he was actually promoted to controller. But it's funny, Caleb, I don't know if you noticed this, in the Collins Street Bakery's own account of this story, they referred to him as the comptroller. Did you notice that?
Yes, I did notice that. I still don't know what the difference is.
There's no
difference.
There is. Comptroller is just the German word for controller. So it's the Germans that started this thing, that it's their influence that's holding over even to present day. As a comptroller, Sandy Jenkins doubled his salary all the way up to $55,000, which 50. Yeah, sorry, not 55, just 50, because I know doubling 25
you're a math
is
teacher.
50. Gosh,
because you're a former math teacher,
and it even says in our notes 50,000, and I said 55 because I'm a genius. Oh no, but this is where I got 55,000. I did look it up because I looked at the median household incomes in Texas, and in 2004, the median household income was 55,000, and that was probably about the time. That's a good guess in terms of when he got promoted to comptroller. So
right.
So depending on the year, he was making not quite the median household income. But his wife Kay was also working. She had a side gig. I think she had a small catering business. So probably between the two of them, they probably pushed themselves over the median household income for
Making it work.
Texas. Yeah, making it work, exactly. So like I said, he was good at his job. That's why he got the promotion. He actually helped Collins Street Bakery implement their first computerized accounting software, which is a feather in his cap, and everybody was pleased with his performance. But here was one of the things, and this apparently was tough for Sandy, is that Corsicana had a lot of old money because Corsicana, Texas, they even have this on one of the buildings in their town, is it is the birthplace of the Texas oil industry. Apparently the first oil that was discovered west of the Mississippi was in Corsicana, Texas. So they've got oil money, they've got old oil money, and so there were two classes of people in town. And
There's also don't discount the fruitcake money, Greg.
right. There's oil money and there's fruit. There's two
fruitcake
types of money in Corsicana.
Yeah.
Right. But regardless, there were those who were moneyed with oil and fruitcake, and there were those who were not, and Sandy and Kay were not. So they were feeling a bit of the low, and even that they were middle class, but they didn't feel like they still felt well. There's a very strong psychological compulsion among humans that like we compare ourselves, like to figure out if we're doing okay. We just look around and go, what's everybody else doing? And if we're not doing as well as they are, that bums us out, which is, I mean, funny thing, psychologically way better if you're buying a house, don't buy it in a fancy new neighborhood with lots of new homes and people who drive fancy cars. Go buy a house in a older neighborhood that's that's a little more modest, and you're gonna feel great about your Subaru Crosstrek. Just maybe speak.
This is great life advice, Greg.
Right, it is, and it's also probably going to be covered in the quiz for continuing education.
Okay, in 2003, Sandy started dipping into the petty cash fund.
Okay.
Not quite sure why, but it was nice. And it was safe.
Not sure why, what motivated him.
Yeah,
other
not
than
exactly.
There was cash there.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, there's kind of this I don't know, would you call it societal pressure that maybe he felt?
Right.
A little bit of coveting. Right. And
Yeah.
so petty cash, and I think we're going to talk about this later, but dipping into the petty cash, not such a big deal. Doesn't really, day to day, people aren't going to notice. In any case, on kind of an impulse.
I would say it's a big deal. I think stealing from your employer is a big deal. It's not big dollars.
Did I not? Yes. Big deal in the sense of no one is going to notice if a few, who knows what they keep in the petty cash fund over at Collins Street Bakery. But if $500 goes missing from petty cash, I mean, nobody's going to be like, lock the place down, and search everybody's wallets as they leave.
Yeah.
As they leave
and,
work.
And my understanding of petty cash is even in large organizations, if you have petty cash that's $2,000, people should be asking why so much.
Yeah, why so much? Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
anyway, I think we're going to talk about petty cash later on, which I'm kind of excited about.
But anyway, I got a whole treatise on petty cash. Buckle up, bitches.
Yeah, you want to buckle up for petty cash. Okay, but anyway, back to Sandy. On an impulse, Sandy purchased a very swanky, albeit used, Lexus. And he told Kay, his wife, that it was a gift. It was more than he could afford, but he was a man with a plan. He was going to embezzle his way into Corsicana's upper echelon.
Nice.
Into that fruitcake and old oil money.
Yeah.
So the petty cash stuff, as we mentioned, small potatoes, right?
Right. Yeah.
His very first non-petty cash misappropriation was for $20,000.
So from something that would be lost in the $500 to $2,000 petty cash, he went from those small stakes to immediately $20,000.
That is, according to all of our resources in the show notes, this is consistent throughout. 20 grand.
20
First
grand.
time.
Which is weird. Which is weird to me. Maybe we're jumping ahead, but it's weird to me because in other frauds that we've studied, it seems like people really start off pretty timidly, where they're like, okay, I'm going to try it for, like $1,000 and see if I get caught. But his right off the bat, he's like, you know what? Throw $20,000 on embezzlement and let it ride.
Right. Yeah. He's got some brass ones, Greg.
Yeah. For not having any personality, he makes up for it in balls. Yeah.
Right. Something is going around. Something is going on inside of Sandy Jenkins.
Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So anyway, he prints a check for 20 grand payable to CitiCard. And what was really handy for Sandy, I'm going to remember that. What was handy for Sandy is that the CEO, whose name I'm not going to repeat so we don't get derailed, the CEO's signature was part of the software. So in other words, when the checks were generated, the digital signature was already on it.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes.
There was
So
no...
they didn't have to run the check to Bob McNutt for his signature. It was already printed with Bob McNutt's perfect cursive right there on the check.
I'm not familiar with this name, but in any case, yes, the signature of the CEO was already on the check. So, i.e., there was no authorization, right?
Yeah. That kind of derails the authorization process.
Right. So, after mailing the check, Sandy would print the check, mail it to pay his his credit card, and then he voided that check in the system.
Okay.
And then he printed a new check for the exact same amount, but with the next number in the check series.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, gotcha.
But that was payable to a legitimate vendor with whom they had regular purchases, right?
Gotcha.
And in the ballpark, right?
Yeah.
So, you for 20 grand, you're not buying 20 grand of stamps.
Yeah. Well,
maybe you are.
Yeah, for a mail order
business.
business.
For a mail order business, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's a bad example. But in other words, he was being certain to classify those expenses to something that wouldn't draw attention.
Right. Something that already had a lot of expenses.
Yeah.
So he's padding a big expense account with a big dollar bill that probably wouldn't get noticed. It's not going to blow it out of whack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he creates this check, he prints it, destroys it.
Okay. So I gotcha. So the one that he sends to his credit card company, that goes to the credit card company. The one that he prints just to make sure that there's something actually in the system, he destroys it. So I get this.
And think about it. The check clears.
Yeah.
The check will clear.
Yeah.
So it isn't like the bank wouldn't be asking any questions. It wouldn't be weird. The bank isn't necessarily going to notice what's going on.
Right.
And on the bakery side, they see that the check cleared. So that reconciles.
Right. Yep.
And they're not going to go, if shit's reconciling, they're not going to go digging around to see what's what. This episode of Oh My Fraud is sponsored by Xero. If you love listening to this podcast, you have learned that systems and processes could have prevented many of the frauds we've discussed. Having an accounting system like Xero can help a business create the processes it needs so that it can avoid becoming a future Oh My Fraud episode. Xero lets you set up multiple users, each with their own login and password, so you can accurately assign the proper access to each user. When it comes to accounts payable, Xero pushes all bills through a built-in approval process. Xero's expense management tools ensure that employees only get reimbursed for approved expenses. And because Xero connects directly to banks, You can reconcile and match transactions daily to ensure that any money coming and leaving the bank accounts is what you expected. To become a Xero partner and gain access to free tools, benefits, and rewards for your practice, head over to ohmyfraud.promo/Xero. That's ohmyfraud.promo/XERO.
One of the things that was unclear as I read through this, it was what roles exactly Sandy had in terms of the internal control process. I believe that he actually had control. So he had physical control of the checks. He could print them himself. He obviously, like we said, the authorization side of things was moot because you print a check and it already has a signature on it. So that part was also under Sandy's control. And then I think, at least initially, Sandy was also the one reconciling the bank statement. So he would see him come in and go, good, cool, we're good, and move on. And even then, knowing most bank statements, they just say, hey, this check number cleared for this amount. It doesn't say who the payee is on the statement. So you'd have to do some digging to figure out who the payee was on the actual check that cleared the bank.
Correct. Like some bank statements, I don't know. Yeah, it's not bad. It wasn't bad. Pretty, but still simple, right? Nothing super complicated about it, but he did a decent job of covering his tracks. And when he was confident that he wasn't going to get caught, because he was confident that nobody would get caught because nobody looked at the voided checks. So like that.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Right. Nobody looked at the voided checks.
I void checks. I mean, I'll screw one up. Like I'll throw one in through the printer upside down on accident, and I'll void it and throw. I recently, well, I know best practice says you're not supposed to get rid of those. You're supposed to keep them around in case somebody does want to inspect them, but nobody does. Nobody ever gives a shit about that. They're just like, okay, some check numbers just, and also with that, you'd have to be pretty diligent to even notice a voided check, because printed checks, invariably people will cash them at different rates. So anytime it's like if a statement comes through and there's checks that are missing sequentially, that's not a red flag. That just means that somebody's just hanging on to the physical check in their desk for a while and not, they're not starving for cash and run to the bank and depositing it right away. So there's a lot of ways that this was pretty smart. I mean, like you said, simple, but still pretty smart way to take some money from your employer.
Yeah. So once he was sure he wouldn't be caught, he started doing it again and again and again.
And again and again. Yeah. This guy, and which makes sense too, that he would go, if your first attempt at this was $20,000, it doesn't sound like it sounds like you're planning on going big right from the outset. And that's exactly what he did. He went big because immediately he and his wife started spending a lot of money, mostly all on their credit cards. And their credit cards were paid off by the bakery. They would be spending to the tune of $250,000 a month. And again, that's like crazy when you compare that to the fact that he makes about $50,000 annually from his salary, that he's spending 5 times that amount in 1 month. That's a
mind-boggling number.
It is, yeah. Well, and here's here, listen to some of the stuff that they bought with that money.
Yes,
please. They remodeled their kitchen with high-end appliances and top-of-the-line finishes, like granite countertops, whatever the best stuff was, like Wolf appliances. I think they had like a bread warmer or something like that, and there was something that seemed totally.
That's what jumped out at you.
Yeah,
the bread warmer.
Because it's so fucking what's the word the kids are using nowadays? Bougie. It was that's the
bougie.
It was a it's like you.
For sure, that's not what the kids are saying. Some people say that a
warmer drawer in your kitchen for bread. That's fucking bougie as fuck.
That's
you don't need that.
That's a little bougie.
Just have room temperature bread. You
bougie
weenie.
Fuck.
They installed a wine cellar in their home.
That's nice.
And these things, and it sounds like those things, I mean, again, they wanted to be part of this high society in Corsicana. So now that their kitchen's remodeled, now they have a wine cellar, and they stock their wine cellar with expensive wines. So they started hosting expensive brunches and dinner parties at their home. Sandy bought... You had mentioned they had like a fledgling watch collection.
Yeah, when he was a kid, he started collecting them.
Yeah, but and so that was something he liked. I think like his early life watch collection, he'd like find used ones for a steal and he'd grab it because he liked them. Now he had the money to just do it. And apparently, reportedly, one of his watch buying sprees, he purchased over $52,000 worth of Rolexes at one shot. Which again,
how much?
$52,000 worth of Rolexes on one Rolex shopping trip. So again,
he's a if I am familiar with the terminology, I suppose he's a horologist. It's horology, right?
I think
a watch collector.
I think watch whore. I think is that what you're trying to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, he was that. Yeah, that's exactly it. He bought a. This is crazy. He bought a $7,200 cell phone. I don't understand
make any
that.
sense. That doesn't even make any
that
sense.
That doesn't make sense. Like even when they had those brick cell phones that like only super rich yuppies had, they weren't. They weren't
in the mid
anywhere near 72.
But in the mid 2000s, like what were people carrying back then? They were carrying Blackberries, right? Or like the Palm Pilots and stuff.
Let's see. Yeah, no, I don't even know.
Blackberries were $7,000.
2004. Yeah, 2004 is probably the age of the Palm Pilot. But in terms of a cell phone, it was like the flip phone, like the Razor. That was the fancy phone in 2004 or 2005. He bought a $40,000 horsehair mattress. I don't know what that is, but I know it cost $40,000.
Great.
And he bought a $58,000 Steinway piano. I know what that is. It's weird to think that a mattress only cost $18,000 less than his Steinway piano, but it did. The Jenkinses, they had a personal shopper at Neiman Marcus who saw them so often that she had nicknames for him. Sandy's nickname was Fruitcake, and Kay's nickname was Cupcake because that was adorable. And Sandy,
hey.
this mother, what?
I just want to say, everything I read and watched about this story brings this up.
Okay.
The fucking nicknames, the fruitcake and the cupcake.
That's
Everyone
true.
brings it up.
That's true.
So you're just like, wait, this can't be. It's like, nope. Everyone talks about the nicknames.
Yeah, everybody.
So you're just like, fine.
Fruitcake and Cupcake. And I think, and I don't know.
The Neiman Marcus personal shopper is
right.
Like giving nicknames to the Spendy Jenkins.
Okay, to me, this is the pinnacle of bouginess for Fruitcake and Cupcake, or at least for Fruitcake, because this motherfucker, he had the balls to have jewelers come to him at work at the bakery with I'm assuming like briefcases full of jewelry to sell to him while he's at his accountant's desk at the bakery, and he had the balls to take a piece and walk over to a coworker and go, hey, I don't know, I mean, jewelers just came to me to sell me this and I was looking at this. Do you think my wife would like this? And I go, what a douchebag move that is.
It's a weird move.
It's a weird move, and
it's a real weird move.
It seems like he's trying to like flex on his coworkers. Yeah. And it seems like everybody would be like, too much Fruitcake Sandy Jenkins. So that was like the pinnacle of just of outlandishness from everything I read. Some other things, they bought a second home in Santa Fe, and they even brought their friends from Corsicana out to their home in Santa Fe and flew them on a private jet. And speaking of private jets, in just 1 year, the year after they started writing the fraudulent checks, Sandy took 43 private jet flights in 1 year.
That's
and
like
over the course of
it's like flying once a week.
Yeah,
on a private jet. And he's
Basically,
the
yeah.
controller. He's the controller at a fruitcake bakery.
Right, exactly. And reportedly, he and Kay over the course of 9 years, which was the amount of time that he was skimming this money from the fruitcake factory, the two of them combined took 223. It says over 223 private jet flights, which is it's all. I mean, I don't know. It's so weird, Caleb, when we're reading stuff and they're like, it was over 223, and it's like that's a very specific number. So why don't you just say they took 224? Just say just say 224. So I don't totally understand that. The joke around cars. These people, they bought cars like it was nothing. The joke around town was that every time Sandy needed an oil change, instead he'd just get a new car. And according to the court documents, the Jenkinses purchased 38 vehicles over the course of those 9 years. So if you think about that, the 223 private jet flights, that's basically one a month, once a month or once every other month. And then they were buying a new car, like basically 4 new cars every year. Is what 4 cars every year. That's
Wait, is that right?
They don't
Is that
make enough
right?
cars.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's like 4 cars. What the fuck?
When it comes to cars, though, one of the things that started to show that there was at least some trepidation with what was going on was Kay's car. So Kay Jenkins, she really liked having a Lexus. But every time she got a new car, she would get the same model of Lexus in the same color. So it'd just be like a newer of the exact same car. And even there's a report that one time the dealer brought her new car, and it was blue, but it wasn't the light blue that she usually got. So she was like, nope, this won't do. I need the light blue color. So you could, on the one hand, you could say she likes what she likes. She likes this car and she likes that color. But on the other hand, and I think that there was reports of her even saying this, if she wanted people to not really realize that she was getting a new car as often as she was, because she was afraid that it would raise people's suspicions, as people's suspicions should be raised. But if you listen through this list of what Sandy Jenkins and Kay Jenkins were buying, it basically is every Cardi B song. They listened to a Cardi B song and they bought all of those things, and that's what they did. The other thing that sticks out to me from this extravagant lifestyle that they were leading was that they were involved in very conspicuous consumption, but they were also there was this half-assed attempt to try to kind of camouflage it. Like they wanted everybody to see what they were. I mean, why else would you have a jeweler come to your office to sell you jewels? But at the same time, they were kind of trying to go, but I think they were conflicted with that whole thing of going, we want everybody to think that we're these, rich people, like to the point where did you watch Gilligan's Island much?
No. I mean, I am familiar with Gilligan's Island. I know there's a theme song and that people like.
Right. That's cute.
Right.
And so there was these 2 characters, Thurston Howell III and his wife Lovey, who were stranded on Gilligan's Island the millionaire and his wife. Yeah. It's in the song. Yeah.
Yes.
Sandy and Kay, totally, in my mind, they're Thurston Howell III and Lovey. That's the life that they're living. But at the same time, they were kind of going, but maybe we need to tone it down some because we kind of need to tone it down some. This episode of Oh My Fraud is sponsored by Rubook Creative. Many of the frauds we talk about on this show usually have some kind of creative accounting involved. But if you want to see truly creative accounting in a non-fraudulent way, you need to check out Rubook Creative. Rubook Creative has dozens of accounting-themed greeting cards, stickers, and other gifts for accountants, including cards designed by yours truly, me, Greg Kite. You knew that I could host a podcast, but you probably didn't know that I designed greeting cards. Rubook Creative cards are great for all accounting occasions, including busy season. taking the CPA exam, luring back employees who quit, baby showers, retirement, and much, much more. Rubook Creative even has children's books for all the very young future CPAs in your life. If you want to delight all your accounting friends on their next card-worthy occasion and get 10% off your orders by using promo code OHMY at checkout, head on over to ohmyfraud.promo/Rubook. That's ohmyfraud.promo/RUBOOK.
So people are noticing this kind of extravagant spending. And the Jenkinses, you say that with such ease, and I cannot say it.
I like to call them the Jenkinses. It's just funny to me.
Yeah, but that's the correct
plural of Jenkins is Jenkinses.
The plural of Jenkins is Jenkinses.
The possessive of Jenkins is Jenkins, and the plural is Jenkinses.
Anyway,
Like old King Wenceslas.
all right.
This is my favorite episode ever in the history of Oh My Fraud.
These Jenkinses, they had a lot of excuses, right? They could explain this extravagant lifestyle that came out of nowhere, essentially, right?
Yeah, right.
People were noticing, and Sandy claimed that his like fancy clothes, Armani shirts and Ferragamo and Gucci shoes, were Walmart purchases. And I don't know how anyone believed that at all. They just didn't look at the labels. Apparently, I don't know.
Yeah, if somebody says, "Hey, that's a nice shirt," and you go, "Thanks," it's actually I just bought it today from Walmart. You're gonna go, "Oh, that doesn't." I mean, I couldn't spot a fancy. If you're wearing a white collared dress shirt, I'm not gonna be able to tell if that was Faded Glory from Walmart or if it was Hermes.
Fair enough.
I can't even pronounce that.
Not important.
Let alone
What's
spot one in
important?
the lineup.
What's important is that they had all these different stories. Sandy Kay, they both said they inherited money, which is not in Corsicana, Texas, not far fetched, right? And the cars, right? 4 cars a year, right? Ridiculous. Okay, Sandy explained it by telling people that he was a car trader, and he would say, "I get new cars, but I'm able to flip them. I flip them. I'm probably paying less than you are and getting a new car every 5-6 months." Clearly, this is also ridiculous.
Bullshit.
Sandy.
Clearly,
ridiculous. Sandy.
Bullshit. You can you flip houses. You buy a shitty house and you're a carpenter and you go in and fix it up and sell it. You can't flip a car. Not like a. It's a brand new current model year Lexus. I'm flipping it. I just bought it and I fixed it up. I can sell it for more. Bullshit, Sandy Jenkins.
Anyway, he said, so Sandy was explaining that he had this cousin who was connected or something. Not connected like in the wise guy way, but like just had access to stuff, including the planes. So that explained the private planes.
Yeah.
So there's all that going on. And what else is going on is Sandy was actually not being completely truthful with Kay about where the money was coming from. But as we will get into, it isn't clear just how much Kay knew.
Right. Yeah, it's not. And as the spouse of someone who's like bringing a lot of money and you're going, this isn't, we're telling people that this is because they're both telling people that they inherited money. Mm-hmm. So she knew something was going on.
Yeah,
but maybe she just didn't
inherit
maybe she
money.
didn't ask a lot of questions. Maybe he was even instructing her, saying, "Hey, you got to trust me, and don't ask questions. It's better for you if you don't know."
Famous last words. Yeah.
Right. That seems like something straight out of like Goodfellas or something like that. Hey, it's a lot of money, but just don't ask a lot of questions. Cupcake, which at that point sounds very derogatory. Just, hey, don't ask a lot of questions at Cupcake. So they've got this. They got all this stuff. They got all these excuses, and Sandy, he was on average stealing about $2 million per year. The gross sales of the Collins Street Bakery in 2005 were $35 million. Now, Caleb,
Yes.
do you remember what we're saying the entire fruitcake industry is worth?
Yeah, like $1 trillion.
No, $70 million.
Sorry.
So Collins Street Bakery basically accounts for half of the fruitcake market, which is nuts, McNuts, and so Sandy is stealing. If he's stealing $2 million per year, and their gross sales are $35 million a year, that means Sandy's stealing over 5% of their gross revenue, which is a lot, because when you start thinking of your profit to net revenue, over 5% profit, that's a decent profit, especially in something that's got a lot of overhead and a lot of like cost of goods sold kind of stuff going into it. He's probably taking all, if not all, most of the profit that Collins Street Bakery would be making from selling their fruitcakes. And because of that, the C-suite of Collins Street Bakery, they knew things weren't going right. So they were like, we had projected that we would be making much more money than we actually are. We're not. So let's try to figure it out. And they blamed a lot of it. They were going, well, the economy sucks right now. They were going, Johnny Carson is talking shit about us. about fruitcakes. I mean, in 2005, it must have been Jay Leno who was talking shit about fruitcakes. I don't know. They had just recently expanded, so they had more brick and mortar retail storefronts, and so part of it was going, hey, it's sort of the startup of this new thing we're trying with these new retail storefronts. That makes a lot of sense as to why your profits would be down. And so as a result of all this, though, they weren't able to really nail, like when the CEO, they come into me and the CEO is like going, somebody's got to tell me why we're not making all the profits we thought we were. And it's like, hey boss, maybe it's the economy. Hey, maybe it's the new storefronts. Hey, and he's like going, that's not good enough. I need solid answers. And so they examined their expenses, and they were like, our expenses are too high, which that's true, because they're too high by about $2 million a year because of Sandy Jenkins. But they didn't know what, but still they couldn't figure out why that was causing the problems, because they just have more inventory. They should have sold more inventory. They audited their payroll to make sure that wasn't where it was. The business side of Collins Street Bakery couldn't figure out why they were stuck in a rut. But, and this was an interesting thing, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, Caleb.
Yeah.
You read the blog post that was published by Collins Street Bakery.
I did.
About this whole scandal. They one of the things that was interesting that they pointed out in that blog post is they said for a lot of businesses, get a $2 million a year embezzlement would have put them under. But they're like 117-year-old business that's well established, and that's pretty much a cash cow. And so for them, the $2 million, it was like, this isn't good, but it's something that we can weather. And they'd be like, there's just something, it's growing pains. We've been through a lot. In 117 years, you've seen it all. And you're just going, yeah, sometimes weird shit happens and we can't figure it out. But it was bugging people. The fact that $2 million was missing was definitely bugging people. I don't care where you live in the United States. If you're a CPA, you have to take ethics continuing education. And I don't care who you are and where you live, you hate taking ethics continuing education. That's why me, Greg Kite, and my buddy, Adam Browd, we created a podcast called Drunk Ethics, where we unfold and expose all of the inner secrets of not just ethics, but how to become more ethical and to promote ethical behavior at your workplace. And we do that while we are getting progressively more shit-faced during the course of each episode. In each episode, we take 7 shots every 7 minutes. And so at the beginning, we are scholarly, and by the end, we are drunk yet still scholarly. If you're interested in this podcast, which I know you are, anyone can listen to the podcast for free. It's out there. You can find it. But if you want CPE credit for it, NASBA certified CPE credit, it is a premium course on Earmark. So if you're already a subscriber to Earmark, it's going to be more than that. But listen, it's worth it because of 2 reasons. First off, you know your company, you know your firm's going to pay for it and not you. And second of all, it's worth it, damn it.
Now, enter Symmetric Walker. She was
Her
hired.
name's Symmetric. We got to
Yes.
point that out. Her name's
Yes.
Symmetric. It's like she's a character in the Matrix. She's not Trinity or Neo or Dozer. She's Symmetric. She's from the Matrix.
Right. She was hired as part of the bakery's accounting department in 2011. When she was trained on the company's software, she was told that there was a glitch in the system so that sometimes a check would be off by 1 digit. And I remember her little, the part of, I believe it was an American Greed episode where I watched and she explained this. And I mean, you could tell she's like, the glitch is bullshit. Like that glitch is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like why are we so lazy
Right.
that we don't figure this out? It's like, it's just a glitch. We deal
Right.
with it.
Right.
And it's
no
like,
big deal. Nothing wrong to see here. It's computers.
Right.
These computers.
yeah, these computers. And it's like, and that's clearly something that, Sandy perpetrated. Right. And
Yeah.
and like people, and then what is amazing is that like people just believed it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So she was new to the business. And anytime you're new to an employer, like there are weird quirks like that make a business go. So like to her, it was probably one of these quirks, right? But one day in 2013, she was doing some accounting stuff and noticed that a check had been written for postage and had cleared the bank for $10,000. But in the general ledger system, it said the check was for $20,000. So Symmetric, being kind of the thoughtful accountant, say there's a discrepancy here.
Right.
And
or just being a fucking accountant is like, that's not the right number.
Right. Wrong number. She got a copy of the cash check and noticed that it was payable to Capital One, which is
Right. But it was supposed to be payable for postage.
for postage. Right. Capital
Yeah.
One, last I checked, not in the postage business.
Doesn't sell stamps. Correct.
No. So Symmetric knew that the bakery did not have any accounts or credit cards with Capital One. So she went to her boss to figure it out. And her boss is Sandy Jenkins.
How convenient.
Yes. Perfect. And Sandy told Symmetric that the post office didn't want to accept a company check, so he paid with his personal credit card, and the check to Capital One was meant to reimburse him. And she does not buy this because, this is a mail order business, or it has a big, mail orders are a big part of its business. And the Postal Service has never had an issue with them accepting checks. Right. So right away, like,
Yeah.
she's like, something doesn't smell right. Right.
Right. And
Right.
and the post office, it's like if there's a stodgy institution, it's the post office, where they'd be like, if anything, they'd be like, credit cards, that seems uncomfortable to me. They'd be like, do you have rolls of quarters? We were really looking for rolls of quarters today.
Yeah.
So I think it doesn't seem like the post office would prefer more modern technology of a credit card over the tried and true check anyhow.
Right. So she starts poking around. Symmetric starts poking around, and she ran a report on all of the company's voided checks, and she found 11 of them worth about $400,000. And it became clear pretty much immediately that Sandy was financing his extravagant lifestyle with Collin Street Bakery money.
Yeah.
So she goes to the CFO, Sandy's boss, who then reports to the CEO, who kind of, with maybe a hint of understatement, saying, well, this explains a lot. Yes,
Right.
it does.
Was it the economy? No. Was it our expansion? It doesn't seem like it. Oh, now I get it.
Everything makes sense.
Right.
Okay. So the next day, Sandy was called into his boss's office, who demanded an explanation. And because he could not explain it, he was fired on the spot.
Right. Well, and I think do you remember this in some of the accounts? They're like asking him very pointed questions.
Yes.
And I think
and his response.
do you remember it?
I do.
If I remember right, he was like, "Well, I'm the one who writes the checks."
Yeah.
and it's like,
You're fired.
yeah, bye. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't bother. Don't even clean out your desk because you owe
Right.
any personal effects in your desk, you owe those to us. So just
Yeah.
get the fuck out.
Yeah. So after he's fired, Sandy races home and he gets 2 shopping bags and he fills them up with the best, his favorite like jewelry items in the house. And he and Kay drive to Austin and they stash the loot at their daughter's house. But I actually think she refused to take it, if I remember it right.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that happens later. I don't recall exactly. But then they drove to they had that second home in Santa Fe, so they went there to kind of like regroup and figure things out. And yeah, this is kind of like a Fruitcake, Thelma and Louise or something, or I don't know, like Bonnie and Clyde, except without all the the shooting. I don't know.
Yeah,
they're on the
Tommy guns.
run.
Yeah.
They're on the run in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, so you're just like, and going to New Mexico because somehow that feels safer.
Right. Exactly. Well, and that makes sense to me. If the heat's on you in Texas and you got another place in New Mexico, then yeah, maybe you go to New Mexico for a while to figure out what your next move is.
Anyway, so about a month later, the FBI shows up to the Jenkinses' home in Corsicana, and they just start hauling stuff out of their house and towing cars because there's several cars, obviously. And around this time, Sandy was in Austin again, and he noticed that he was he either noticed or he thought he was being followed. So he grabs a bunch of the loot and he went to Lady Bird Lake, found kind of a secluded area, and he started hiding stuff like it was an Easter egg hunt at Mar-a-Lago or something.
Right. Yeah.
And then
that's because I think, wasn't it like he was like, okay, I'll put this behind this random bush and this one I'll put at the base of this tree. And, right.
Yeah. And then finally, because the dude had so many damn watches, he just gave up and he put the rest in the lake.
Right. Which is crazy.
And so this is clearly someone who's panicking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody who's freaked out and gotta, maybe not of clear mind.
Right. Well, and it's funny too, because I had a couple of the accounts that I read, they were like, we don't know what his motivation was for doing that stuff. We don't know if he was trying to hide evidence, or if he was going, hey, I can come back and grab this stuff later.
Right.
But if you're hiding it under a bush, like you said, he's one way or another, he's panicking and he's doing a very poor job of of being a criminal.
Yes.
He's failing criminal. It's not criminal 101. This is like a 304.
Yeah, this is advanced level stuff.
Yeah.
It's like when the jig is up and you got to make a getaway. This is pretty advanced stuff.
Yeah. Criminal 304, how to properly hide loot.
There you go, Professor Greg Kite. So he and Kay go back to Corsicana, but the FBI has changed the locks on their house, which is how insane. Can they do that? They must.
They did.
They did it. So but they managed to break into their own house and tried to lay low, which of course must have been impossible.
Which is ridiculous. Did you think about that? It's like, okay, clearly our house has been plundered.
We're going to be on the
authorities.
lam. We're going to be on the lam in our own house.
Let's stay here.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck are you thinking? They were just, I mean, again, they also missed that class, how to flee.
Right.
Fleeing strategies.
Being on the lam.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so shortly after that, an off-duty police officer was taking a leisurely stroll around Ladybird Lake. I don't know the lake, but it sounds like that's something you could do. And he stumbled across about $250,000 in gold bars, gold coins, watches, and jewelry. Like if, a messy pirate on the high seas of Ladybird Lake was just, burying stuff.
Or not
burying, just leaving things out in the open.
Right.
So it didn't take long for the authorities to tie this stuff back to Sandy and for the Jenkinses to be arrested and for the judge to declare them flight risks. So when it was all said and done, Sandy Jenkins had embezzled over $16.6 million by writing 888 checks over the course of 8 years.
It would have been funner if it was 666 checks, but
well, the mark of the beast.
yeah, but I'll take
just-
888. It's close enough. It's still a fun number.
It is. It's a very fun number. That's a lot of checks.
It is. And it's a lot of time and it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
So you might be asking yourself what happened to Fruitcake and Cupcake. Here's what went down. Kay, she continued to maintain that she knew nothing about Sandy's scheme and that she was just surprised as everybody else at what was happening. She's like, oh my God, this money was coming from illegal means. What? Weird. We're all shocked. And Sandy, I guess in an honorable way, sort of, he told the authorities that Kay had played no part in the scheme and in his misdeeds. However, what he didn't think about when he told the authorities that is that the FBI had his emails, including one that read an email to Kay that read, "Remember, you never knew anything." So that kind of undermined that whole line of defense. Then I believe
it's not a good look.
What's that?
Not a good look.
No,
that's not a good look.
No, it's not. It's like going, yeah.
Don't write that in an email.
Right. So I believe it was in 2015, Kay pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to commit money laundering, and she received 5 years of probation as her punishment, along with 100 hours of community service. And she was required to send a letter of apology to the Collins Street Bakery, which
that's such a Texas sentence. Like in one sense, I expected her to be sent to the gas chamber, but also for her to write a formal apology. Like those two things are about as Texas as it gets.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the other thing is, if it's public knowledge that the court is forcing you to write a letter of apology, that completely undermines any apology that might be in that letter. There's no this is clearly,
how do you know if it's genuine remorse?
Right. There's no sincerity. It's that somebody put a gun to my back and forced me to say I'm sorry. So I'm sorry, I guess. That's basically, even if it's eloquent, that's basically what you're going to read regardless.
You nailed that petulant child. Sorry, Greg.
Thanks. I used to be a middle school math teacher. So, but clearly, I mean, she didn't spend any time in jail. Clearly, not a slap on the wrist, like a pat on the wrist to Kay for what happened there. Sandy, he in 2014, so a year before Kay pleaded guilty, Sandy pleaded guilty to one count of mail fraud, one count of conspiracy to commit money laundering, and one count of making a false statement to a financial institution, and he was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. The court also ordered restitution jointly and severally for Sandy and Kay Jenkins, in the amount of $12,697,000, which was just simple math that they stole almost exactly $4 million more than that. But the authorities were able to recover $4 million in cash, jewelry, other items that they were able to resell to the tune of $4 million, real estate, that kind of stuff. So so that $4 million obviously was returned to the bakery, but they were still left high and dry for almost $13 million. And that's what Sandy and Kay were required to pay in restitution. When I read in the court proceedings that the restitution was required jointly and severally, I was like, I don't know what that means. So I did look that up, and that basically means that they share equal responsibility to pay that restitution, which actually does come into play in a minute. So here's where the epilogue gets super sad. So so it was fun, and then you made it dry, and now it gets sad.
Also my fault, by the way.
So here's what happens. So they get their sentences. Sandy's in jail. Kay files for divorce and does get divorced from Sandy. So shortly after the shit hits the fan, she gets divorced from him.
Well, as you well know, it took some time, but
right. But she
filed pretty much right away.
Filed right away, and they obviously weren't living together because he was in jail. So effectively, they were separated and on their way to divorce. And she did divorce him while he was in jail. And then this is the real bummer stuff. So the divorce was granted in February 2016. So yeah, it did take a little while. But then this is where it gets really dark. Sandy died in prison March 15th, 2019, reportedly from. Well, wait, I read that it was suicide.
The only place where I saw that was in the comments of the Texas Monthly article.
That's where I saw it too. And
the article. So the Corsicana Daily Sun, that's the local paper.
Right.
When they reported on the story, they only said they didn't have a cause of death. Like it wasn't reported and it was under investigation.
So you're telling me that you're going to take the Corsicana Daily Sun over a comment on a post on the internet?
No good?
I mean, I'm just going to put journalist in quotes from now on. But regardless, Sandy.
He died
in prison, and it was an untimely death. He was like 70 when he passed away, so it's not like he was a spring chicken or anything. He'd lived a long life, but he wasn't supposed to die when he died. That's what I gather from all that.
So, Greg, did we learn anything?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, here's the thing. I learned a lot. Now, some of it was just the usual stuff that I'll go over because clearly the Jenkinses were living way beyond their means. 39%, this is according to the ACFE's report to the nation's 2022, 39% of all perpetrators of fraud exhibit the red flag behavior of living beyond their means. Fun data point. The other thing, and this, Caleb, it seems like we talk about this on every embezzlement fraud that we look at, but there was the basics of internal controls were missing, and we've already kind of talked about this, the separation of duties, the authorization, physical control of the checks, and the reconciliation of the bank account. And that was, like I said, that's the very basics of internal controls. That was non-existent. Sandy was able to do all of those. Again, according to the ACFE's report to the nation, 29% of victim organizations do not have adequate controls in place to prevent a fraud, which I think is a very funny statistic because technically, isn't it that 100% of victim organizations do not have adequate?
Yeah. It's like, is it? Yeah, because it kind of implies that 71% of victim organizations had airtight internal control.
Right.
It's exactly. Like, wait, that can't be, right?
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. The other thing that I think, again, from the ACFE data, which that's right in my wheelhouse.
You think about it a lot.
I do, and because I think it's fun. It's really interesting data, and it's always fun to compare cases to it. According to the ACFE, only 58% of frauds ever result in a criminal referral. And I even checked that. So that the 58% number, that's from the 2022 report. I actually went back to the 2020 report because I always thought it was a staggeringly low amount of cases that resulted in a criminal referral. But I looked at the 2020 report and it was 59%. So it is around that. So, but it still is very interesting that 40% of cases don't result in any criminal referral at all. The police or the FBI don't get involved at all. And the reason why is because the victim organizations, they don't want the bad press. And if it goes to, it's public record as soon as it becomes a criminal case. So in order to keep things hush-hush, they don't involve the police. But what's interesting, not only in this case did Sandy and Kay get referred to the criminal justice system, but Collins Street Bakery actually went a step further. And they actually, I mean, big picture, they used this scandal as marketing because we talked about it before. The Collins Street Bakery, they published a very, very long blog post, very thorough blog post about this scandal. And it seemed like that blog post was spurred on by the release of a documentary called Fruitcake Fraud that was supposed to be on Discovery Plus, and I signed up for Discovery Plus, and guess what wasn't on Discovery Plus? Fruitcake Fraud, which is the fruitcake fraud that was perpetrated by Discovery Plus. But fortunately, it was a free trial, so there's no restitution involved in that, and I already canceled my subscription to Discovery Plus, not a sponsor of this show. But so obviously Collins Street Bakery, their blog is produced by their marketing department. And at the very end of the blog, Caleb, I don't know if you remember seeing this line, but at the very end of this long blog about how they got just screwed by Sandy Jenkins, they had this little plug that said, "Taste the cake that fueled the fraud. Try for yourself the fruitcake that fueled our small town scandal. Order our deluxe fruitcake today."
I'm sold.
Me too. I don't want a fruitcake, but I kind of want a Collins Street Bakery fruitcake.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, no such thing as bad publicity, apparently.
yeah. Well, and honestly, I think it's kind of brilliant because
it's lemons into lemonade, right?
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
yeah. And I mean, I was very clear that I don't enjoy fruitcake. I've been very tempted to order a Collins Street Bakery fruitcake because of this. And I kind of do want to taste the fruitcake that fueled the fraud.
I'll send you one for Christmas, Greg.
That would be wonderful.
Wouldn't that be?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But so that's the basics. But there's some other stuff that really that drove me deeper on this stuff. So, do you remember this was many episodes ago? We talked about what excuses we would give. Like if you embezzled a bunch of money, what would your excuse be? Do you remember what yours was?
Yes, I believe inheritance was probably the first one.
Yeah, me too. Inheritance and lottery.
Yeah.
Those are the two.
Yeah, and then winning the lottery. Yeah, those are the two.
But inheritance is better because some states they publish who wins the lottery. So if somebody's like, if I said, "Hey, I won the lottery," they'd be like, "Let me check that." But with inheritance, can't really check it so good.
Right.
So it's an easier one to defend. And so obviously that's what the Jenkinses used was the inheritance excuse. That was their main excuse, and it seemed to fly. But Caleb, this is the very interesting thing. If he inherited all that money, why the hell was he still working a $50,000 a year job if he had all the money in the world to fly private jets and have a jeweler come to his work to sell him jewelry? What do you think? Is that just the red flag that should be like, he's the problem, fire him?
No, because people like to work.
Yeah, exactly.
People like to work. Like, it gives them a reason to get up in the morning,
Yeah.
Work is fulfilling for people and even accountants.
Yeah.
Even accountants are fulfilled by their work. Sorry, accountants. But yeah, so I think for the most part, I think that's easy to relate to. I think people, like, you hear people all the time, like when, Mega Millions or Powerball or whatever gets up into the, God, now over a billion.
Right.
Like most people you hear about winning, they don't plan to quit working.
Right.
Right. And so I don't personally find that unusual.
Yeah. Right. So I think the lesson learned there is definitely something to dig into. If somebody at your work is like, I could totally retire, but I get too bored and I need something to do. with my day. Could be legit. My boss at my work, he's a retired general surgeon. He is rolling around and he's got more money than I could hope to earn in my life because, and again, here's the thing. From what I understand, because he made a lot of money, but there's also a lot of people who were doctors all their life who retire and they're just doing meh. He's doing great. And apparently he made some very shrewd investments very early on. He was good with his money. And so, but then how do I know that stuff? Because that's what he told me. And, but he's 86. He still comes to work every day. And guess how much money he makes?
He's not cutting people open at 86.
No.
Right?
He's retired from general surgery. He still has his medical license. When I need a quick prescription for a Z-Pack, I just go to him instead of
he's your
paying the
Oh.
copay to my family practice doc. But
Nice work.
But yeah, but he's not doing surgery anymore. And his role at our company is simply oversight. And he's still an owner in the business. But his salary from our company in 2022 is right about, what is it, $53,200 a year is his salary. So it's Sandy Jenkins' money that he's making.
Yep.
So and the only reason why I know for sure that he's not embezzling money from us is that I also know that he can't attach a PDF to an email. So I don't think he's stealing money from our company. That's a true story.
I mean, he's 86. So I mean, yeah.
I have to help him.
That tracks.
You wouldn't if he has to scan a document. I have to go do it for him because it's a step.
No, it's the paperclip. No, the icon that looks like a paperclip. No,
right,
Mark.
Exactly. Okay, next thing I learned. I do want to say, who in the world still uses petty cash? Have you ever worked at a business that had like a letter of the law petty cash, like a little cash box?
No.
Exactly. And so nowadays, really, I mean, their company credit cards have really taken the place of petty cash. But at the same time, we also know that there's plenty of ways for people to embezzle money through their expense accounts or through their company credit card. It's very possible. People need to be reconciled. And there are some products out there. I know there's a product called Divvy. Their headquarters are right up the street from where I live here in Utah. I've actually done a little bit of contract work for them. And they have cards that just make everything very transparent and kind of lock in the amounts of money people can spend on that. So yeah, it makes it a lot more difficult to use. But petty cash, the way that, so if there is still a petty cash system, just like with an expense account, basically you have to, at the end, every time, at any given time, you can reconcile petty cash by saying, hey, how much money are we supposed to have in petty cash? Oh, $1,000. And then you count up the cash that's in there, and people are supposed to put receipts in for when they take petty cash out. So cash plus receipts has to equal the petty cash balance, whatever that balance is maintained at. It's a very, very simple audit thing that should have been happening. Arguably, Sandy was responsible for doing that, so that's why he could get away with it. But again, it's one of those things where you need to have possession of the asset separate from reconciliation of the asset. So that's a little petty cash thing. I
have to say, this story is that he carried out the fraud from like 04 to 13, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So like, petty cash at that time was probably still a common practice. Like we weren't, but it still seems weird that was like the amount of money that he took from petty cash was a lot. Like it was just hard to believe that it kept getting replenished and he just kept taking it. He's like, why am I doing this? I will just cut phony checks to myself.
Right.
But in any case, that crossed my mind.
Okay. So two last things that I learned from this. The person who found the watches and other loot that was stashed at Lady Bird Lake was an off-duty police officer. And you kind of think somebody who's an off-duty police officer knows like the right protocol for what to do when when valuables are found. But I wanted to look into that further, because what if it was just some random jogger who was jogging along and, like in the morning before the sun was fully out, and they tripped on something. They went back, go, what the hell did I just trip on? It's like, oh, a gold bar. And then they go, what do you do? What?
Doubloons.
Right. Which was kind of, the dude threw gold bars in the lake and gold coins. So yeah, so it was basically doubloons. And I was like, okay, if it was me, if I was that jogger and I found it, what's the requirement for me legally for finding if it was cash or if it was gold or if it was a bunch of Rolex watches? Is it legal for me to just play finders keepers and take it home? And what I found out was an emphatic hell no. It's not legal for you to, if you find any money, you're supposed to give it to the authorities, or at least it depends. The state to state, it's a little different. Some states you just have to do your, I guess, for lack of a better word, due diligence to see if you can find who the owner is. But basically, here's what I found. Even though you did not steal the money or the items, you didn't steal it directly from its owner. You are holding the money and not trying to return it. Holding or possessing property that does not belong to you constitutes theft or larceny under most state laws.
Yep.
That's a big, that's, I mean, like I said, I grew up very strongly under the finders keepers statute, and that's not correct. If you find this shit, you got to turn it in, and that's the law.
Excellent takeaway, Greg. I think I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if 90% of our audience had no clue that was the case.
Right. I didn't. I was like, I wonder what. That's why I looked it up. The last lesson that I learned also goes back to garnishment. And this has actually been a nagging question for me for a few of these cases, because you get this restitution that's required for this massive amount of money that there's no way in hell they'll be able to pay it back, especially Sandy Jenkins. So it was $12 million. It was jointly and severally, required of him and Kay. So basically he was responsible for $6 million of that. And you think, okay, he's 65 and he goes into jail. If he serves his whole 10-year prison sentence, he's out when he's 75. When you're 70, a 75-year-old felon is not going to be able to get a good job by any means. And then if everything you earn just goes to pay off how does that even work?
Yeah, you out on the street, and where do they send your checks?
Yeah.
Well,
how do you live? How are you going to live if you owe $6 million worth of restitution? How do you live? And what I found, this is just for the state of Utah, but I've got to assume Utah, we don't blaze our own trail in anything, so I've got to assume this is the case in most states in the United States. In the state of Utah, restitution garnishment is limited to 25% of they say your weekly disposable income, but the way they define it, it basically sounds like it's your net income. So whatever, it's not your gross pay from your employer, but whatever your net pay is for your employer, 25% of that.
They're not your state and federal income tax. They're not going to let you slide on that stuff.
Right. Exactly. So yeah. So you get 70. That's the max. So you still have 75% of what you earn that you can live on. So again, when we're talking about restitution, if you have to pay $6 million worth of restitution and only the max is 25% of your pay can get garnished, you're going to have to make $24 million, Sandy, between when you get out of prison at 75 and when you die to pay back your $6 million of restitution. But obviously, again, just to make this the most bummer of a podcast, poor Sandy didn't even have that chance. And poor Collins Street Bakery didn't get a chance to get repaid for any of that. So that was my PhD thesis on what I learned from the Collins Street Bakery.
Good stuff, Gregorio.
Thank you.
I
thought, like I said, this is one of my favorite cases that we've done so far. But that was me. What did you learn, Caleb?
I think what I learned, all the stuff you mentioned is great. I think I learned that Corsicana, Texas has more than its fair share of backbiting assholes. I'm not kidding. Read that Texas Monthly article. It's in the show notes. All these people that are talking to that reporter on background, just assholes.
Yeah.
So
Kind of backbiting, gossipy.
yeah,
It's sort of.
I don't think I could have worded it any better, Greg.
Yeah, kind of Real Housewivesy kind of vibe. Yeah.
Here, the other thing, and I'm surprised you didn't mention this, but the other thing that I was reaffirmed for me is people want to, especially in small businesses, there's a large element of trust in how people run businesses, and that's and there's no, I don't besmirch anyone for that attitude, because I at least believe that fundamentally people are good. And so I think it's natural for people to want to trust people that they work with on a daily basis in all these situations. And if you watch Bob McNutt and hear him talk about it, like, you can tell, like, this is Mr. McNutt. Mm-hmm. He felt a deep sense of betrayal.
Yeah.
And like, and he, you know, that he felt ashamed of, like, putting his own business, like this family business that, you know, he owes to his ancestors to, and to not to mention that, but like all the employees and of that company, and you know that like hurts him a lot. You can see it, and he knows he made a mistake. And they don't run the business anymore. But he also, to his credit, he said something very interesting. He's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to quit? He's like, I considered quitting because all this happened on my watch. I'm 100% responsible, you know, for not running this business better. But like, who better is this to take the business forward? And I give him credit for owning up to his mistakes and saying, you know what, I screwed up real bad, and I owe everybody a lot. And so And I don't know, maybe this is part ego too, where he's like, but I'm the person to fix it. Like, I'm the person who's going to take it forward. So it's tough. And, and you say, like, I don't know, there was something about this one where I'm like, God, there's a lot of sadness in this story. Like, there's just a lot of, and we've had a lot of laughs here, but there's also, I was like, oh gosh, this is rough.
Yeah.
And, but anyway, the trust, just people want to trust other people. And I think that we've talked about countless times is like, yeah, that's fine, but just get some internal controls.
Right.
Just like it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be jerks. Your internal control doesn't mean being jerks.
Right.
It just means doing some basic stuff that you verify that things are being done correctly.
And the Collins Street Bakery, that's clearly what they've done as a result of this. They have implemented a lot of internal controls that they didn't have anymore. But for you, listener, and your business, maybe do that before you lose $16.7 million worth of cash out the back door.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for this episode. Remember, when you void a check in your accounting system, that doesn't make the actual check actually disappear in the real world.
And also remember, if you enjoy eating fruitcake, you're a fucking monster. Stop listening to this podcast, not this episode, this podcast. And please send a fruitcake to Greg Kite at 61 East 3050.
No. Well, I wouldn't send it back, but you're a bastard, Caleb. Also, if you, listener, who's not a bastard, want to drop us a line, send us an email at ohmyfraud@earmarkcpe.com. And Caleb, where can people find you out there in the internet?
I'm on Twitter at CNewquist and LinkedIn /Caleb Newquist. Greg, what about you? Where are you on the internet?
Well, people can get a hold of me by sending me a letter or postcard to 61 East.
You're going to get hate mail.
Oh, or hopefully just a slew of fruitcakes. And you can find my address in the show notes. Probably not. But no, on the internet, Twitter, I'm at Greg Kite, and LinkedIn, I am LinkedIn /Greg Kite. Pretty straightforward. Oh My Fraud is written by Greg Kite and myself. Our producer is Zach Frank. If you like this show, leave us a review and share it with a friend. That's how people find the podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And for the accountants, if you listen to this podcast on Earmark, you can get free CPE. Nutty. Free. Amazing. Join us next time for more avarice, swindlers, and scams from stories that will make you say, oh my fraud.